Last night, I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, but I kinda think that a moose or something came over and checked out my camper. It was little after midnight. It was pitch black out. Like, I couldn't see anything, but I could hear some feet walking, and big feet. This wasn't the sound of a person. So, and I heard kinda snorting sound too, like big beasts like that sort of make. So, needless to say, I just stayed in the camper and did not go out and investigate. I forgot to look for prints in the dirt in the morning, so I can't say for sure, but I get the feeling there was something out there. Anyways, I might just be spooking myself paranoid, but anyways, I woke up and took the kitty cat for another little walk out on the rocky shoreline, just to get her tired out a little bit so she would nap for the drive, 'cause she woke me up fairly early, being real playful, and she's uh, she's a handful. I love her, but she is a bit of a handful, so I gotta tire her out as much as I can. Decided to head back north to the Trans-Canada Highway. Just a little one-day excursion down here to Seal Cove. As I was driving away, I started to think, I wish I stayed longer, but really, this is for the best. This side trip took 2 days, and looking at my map, I think it'll have timed me out perfectly to be in St. John, the capital of the province, on the weekend. So I'm planning on doing some busking there. Stopped at the little gas station here in town before hitting the long road, because looking at my odometer and knowing my fuel usage, I very well would have ran out of gas about 10 minutes away from Trans-Canada if I didn't. And it was nice to go into the little small town gas station and chat with the lady behind the counter for a minute, and she told me if I went back over to Hermitage, if I found a spot to put the canoe in, it would be a good paddle, but I didn't bother following that lead. I felt like making some miles. I also knew that there was rain coming in the afternoon, so I wanted to drive through this beautiful landscape while I still had the good weather that the morning gave me. These mountains, they're breathtaking. Something about it. Oh, I just love this landscape. I could spend a lot of time out here, and someday I think I'll come back to actually spend a good few weeks. Hard to say when that'd be. Someday in the distant future. I'd like to get on the ferry down there and go to the little remote coastal villages that are only boat access. They don't even have roads into them. But that'll be another trip someday in the future. Might be years down the road for all I know, but as I go on the trip, I do run into some places that I really want to explore one day when it isn't part of a bigger trip where I have to kind of rush through it. I want to come back to some of these places, and the South Shore of Newfoundland is absolutely one of them. So I started flipping through radio stations to find something interesting, and I ended up finding a CBC station talking about the fisheries out here. It was kind of neat to listen to that while driving around. It turns out there's a backlog at the processing plants for the fisheries, so they're still working on processing the clams when they're supposed to be getting into the cod, something like that. And there's workers, they say, have been every day for the past 2 months or more without a break. It's wild. If I knew what I was doing with a fillet knife, I'd see about getting some work at one of the places, but then I wouldn't be getting home till snow's flying, so that wouldn't make much sense. But yeah, it was neat to find the CBC talking about something that I wouldn't have known otherwise around here. There's always something interesting. And so today I made it back up to the Trans Canada and over to a bigger city called Gander, and ended up chatting with the guy here for a little bit when I was on the Cobb Pond walking trail that you'll see at the end of the video. I ran into an older fella and I told him where I woke up this morning down Seal Cove, and he asked me if I seen any caribou. I said I didn't know there was caribou. I knew there was lots of moose in Newfoundland, but yeah, he told me there's a herd of caribou and they migrate right through that area. So someday I think I'd want to go back during the time that happens and see the big caribou herd during its migration. I didn't notice on my way down the road, but on my way back up, I realized a big chunk of the forest around me is just burned out. A lot of trees standing with no leaves on them, charred trunks, just must have been a good forest fire went through. I don't know if that would have been earlier this year or a year ago or a couple years ago, but it's rough to see all that. Right here we hit some construction and it was a real rough road, but this guy in the red truck must have better suspension than I do, because the truck was shaking like crazy, but this guy felt the need to pass me and the guy in front of me. Must be in a good hurry. But anyways, the the rough road didn't last too long, and eventually, after following this guy for a while, because the truck can't really do passing speeds so well, it takes forever to pass someone. Eventually, this guy turned off, and I got back on the Trans Canada here. It's a nice highway, but it is kind of boring. I'm glad I took the little side excursion down the side highway, which is more or less just a road by any other name. I'm glad I got down that way to see some real open, empty wilderness, but it was time to get back on the main highway and get into a more populated area again. Gander seems pretty nice. I might try and find a downtown area tomorrow if the weather's nice enough, and even though it'll be a Wednesday, that's still an alright day to get out busking. As long as I can find somewhere where there's people walking around, I can generally get a smile from somebody. 'Cause Gander seems pretty nice here. I ended up chatting with another local. He looked at the Ontario license plate and asked me what part of Toronto I'm from. I gave him kind of a look, said about 2.5 hours away from Toronto. He asked me how close to Thunder Bay I was, which he pronounced Thunder Bay. He I'm starting to get into the heavy accents some places now, which is just great. Sometimes it's hard to understand what folks are saying, but then I had to tell him, like, that's a good 16-hour drive. That's a long haul. You could maybe do it in a day, but that's pushing it. Speaking of long hauls, I ended up in some construction traffic here, just at a slow crawl, and closing in on 3 hours on the road from where I started. I was really starting to yawn and get tired of it. just slowed to a crawl, stopping and going. They dug up the entire road here for I don't know what, and it was good to eventually get past it. Even when I have no reason to be in a hurry, being slowed to a crawl in a train of cars going down the road, it's not it's not a good time. So when I got out of that construction, I stopped here at the A&W for some lunch and to use their internet to upload the last video there. And their upload speed was horrible, so I ended up having to wait a good close to 2 hours to get a 15-minute video put up. Though that's alright, I ended up chatting with someone in the parking lot who was traveling around in a vintage Volkswagen bus. Just sweet little van. And he was checking out my rig. Proud to tell him I built it all myself and got showing off the features of it. And he had a dog with him on the travels. He checked out the kitty, and yeah, it's great meeting other travelers. I love those Volkswagen vans. If I didn't already have the truck, I was going to look for some kind of a van to travel in, because it would be nice to be able to get from the cab back to the sleeping area without going outside for the really rainy times. Got a tiny little window in the truck that I could squeeze through, but I'd have a rough go of it. So after the A&W, we stopped here at Cobb Pond Park to get the kitty back out for another little walk, because she slept off the morning walk pretty good and she was getting pretty active again. I gotta keep her tired out or she becomes a bit of a nuisance. She just loved this boardwalk too. After climbing around on the rocks, she really got running around good on this good flat stuff. Eventually it did start raining a bit, and we pushed through and went for a nice long walk, but by the end of it both of us were getting pretty wet, and she wanted to walk on her own, but I just picked her up and carried her, 'cause it takes 5 times as long to get anywhere at her pace, getting distracted by things all the time, and we just didn't need to get completely soaked. She gets so easily distracted, and she went off path in this one spot and just loves climbing trees. A couple of times after the rain started heavy, she got away from me and went underneath the boardwalk, hiding from the rain. And I had to coax her out of there, and after she did that twice, I decided that's enough, or I'm carrying you back to the truck. But beautiful little walking trail through this park. Tomorrow we'll get to Terra Nova National Park and check that out.